Okay, part 2, Teaching Young Language Learners by Annamaria Pinter. The camera I'm using has a 30-minute time limit, so sometimes when I go off too long, I get cut off at exactly 30 minutes, which is what happened last time. I think my problem was I was trying to talk in too much depth about every single thing in here, which, if I'm going to do that, it's going to be a 4-hour video. So I've decided to turn the camera back on, and I'm just going to go quickly through the other chapters here. So, teaching listening and speaking. There were some good ideas in here. Talked about teaching various speaking activities. And then the next chapter is teaching reading and writing. Again, I don't want to get bogged down in here, so I'll just say there were some useful ideas in here. Teaching vocabulary and grammar. A lot of good ideas in here. She's of the opinion that younger children don't handle grammar rules well, which is consistent with the other books I've read. So she advocates just teaching kind of set phrases. It reminds me a lot of kind of Michael Lewis, the lexical approach. Learning to learn. So this is kind of teaching children strategies related, she talks about teaching children 4 types of strategies: social and affective strategies, strategies related to raising awareness about what language learning is, metacognitive strategies, and direct or cognitive strategies. Some of this is actually quite good. Some of this had me rolling my eyes a little bit. I skipped this when I was talking earlier, but something she mentioned earlier. One of the characteristics of kind of child learners is they don't have an external sense of motivation. They don't have a sense of like, I'm learning English because I want to kind of communicate with foreigners. Especially when they're very young, they just kind of have this, I'm learning English because the teacher is making me, right? Which is a very important point to keep in mind. I often am capable of forgetting this myself in my own classroom, being like, why aren't you kids paying attention? You forget that they don't have any external sense of motivation. So you have to kind of provide that by making the lesson interesting. Some of this stuff here, where you're kind of getting into having children tracking their own learning and stuff like that, like activities for older children, where they're kind of reflect on their own language learning. It's a good idea. It's in danger of forgetting what she established in the earlier chapters, which is that they all don't want to be here some of the time. Some of them do, but some of them don't. So if you have them kind of jump through some of these hoops about reflect on your learning, what can you do better next time, you can just see the teenagers rolling their eyes about this. I'm sure it all made sense from an educational theorist perspective, but like the teenagers are just not going to bite on this. That being said, I think she's right in general, which is we spend far too much time frog marching kids through language lessons without getting them to think about how people learn languages. The average person has been exposed to little to no theory about how second language acquisition works. And certainly by the time they're getting to be a teenager, they're old enough to kind of study some of this. And part of the problem is the field is a mess. Nobody kind of agrees on how second language acquisition works. But certainly getting children to kind of study theories about second language acquisition would help them direct their own learning when they're kind of studying a foreign language themselves or a second language. So definitely, I'm with her on the main part. We need to kind of introduce students to kind of more theories about how the mind works and how languages are learned so they can better direct their own studies. Not only students, teachers, right? I think back to my early days of teaching English in Japan when I was straight out of college with a history education degree. I had no idea what I was doing, right? So yeah. Material evaluation and materials design gets into this a little bit, evaluating course books. I think she's doing the best she can here. Arguably, she is not critical enough about the textbook's tendency to kind of chop up different grammar points, what I think Scott Thornberry called the grammar McNuggets tendency of textbooks. But then, of course, she doesn't have enough time to get into this. She talks about adapting materials, which is good. How to adapt a well-known fable, which is something I'm interested in. I've been spending time lately adapting stories for my own classroom. Although, if I'm going to be critical here, it's a little bit common sense. Like, she talks about kind of adapting a fable and kind of changing all the language to make it easier for the kid. And I think that's just common sense, right? As a teacher, you take a story, you adapt the language to make it easier for your classroom. And then she talks about, like, adapting does not always work. So she has, like, this text from, like, a book which is kind of satirizing fairy tales and fables and saying it's very hard to adapt this to the classroom because it relies kind of on a lot of playing with legal language and kind of knowledge of kind of other fairy tales and stuff like that. And I thought, yeah, of course. Some of this is common sense if I was going to complain about something. Topic-based planning. Yeah, some of this, I don't know. She's got the right idea. She talks about doing lessons kind of based around topics, which, okay, is a good idea, maybe. The problem I have, and I work with a lot of textbooks that are thematically based like this. So you have a whole unit around a certain topic, and each unit feeds in with that. The problem I have in my teaching is kind of you spend the first day kind of introducing the topic and getting them excited about it. Then by like day 5, when you're doing lesson 5 on kind of the same topic, at that point the enthusiasm is starting to lag a little bit. So I don't know if it's always a good idea to do units based around the same topic. It might be more interesting for the learners to do a different lesson on each different topic. But that does seem to be the trend that I also find as a teacher. I'm running out of ways to lead in. Unit I'm doing now out of a textbook is a unit on colors. So there's like 6 lessons based around the theme of colors. Each one are exploring different language points, but they're also like, they're all based around a common theme. I'm running out of ways to lead into it. Like the first day, we have a group discussion about colors. What does colors mean in your country? Second day, okay guys, we're doing colors again. Let's lead into this. Third day, I'm like, all right guys, colors again. Talk to your partner. Right. That's my problem with topic-based units. Now the one thing I have here, and I know this is only an example, is families. So for kind of older learners, readings of an authentic book, Children Like You in the World, speaking of families and society, mind map advantages and disadvantages of having big families. It's all right, but I can see my teenagers rolling their eyes about this. They said, what about K-pop? Can we talk about that instead? Or can we talk about Marvel superhero movies instead? I mean, like, it's a good idea in the sense that personalizing is a good idea to a certain extent, but the teenagers are not going to bite on this. So I would, I'm a little bit more skeptical of that. Assessment. She has some interesting ideas on assessment. Again, this is something that the teacher has little control over. It's all over to the curriculum designer. But yeah, Why are traditional methods problematic? Gap between teaching and testing, child-friendly methods. So some interesting stuff in here. And then some interesting stuff at the end, kind of focus on research in the last chapter. And then some tasks at the end. The tasks come in an appendix. They're meant to be read kind of alongside of the book as you go through them. Oh, I almost forgot to mention this. I'm being a little bit critical of aspects in this book, and it must be admitted some of that is just my own closed-mindedness, because I have a tendency to kind of, as I read this book, if she talks about something I'm already doing, I think, oh yeah, that's such a good idea. I'm already doing that. What a great idea. And then if she talks about something I'm not already doing, I'm like, oh, that's not going to work. You know, what a stupid idea. So I tend to be kind of very enthusiastic about the ideas in the textbook which reflect what I'm already doing, and very resistant to anything that's kind of that I'm not already doing or that's asking me to change my style. With that confession out of the way, there was a lot of it. I skipped over this when I was talking about earlier, but when she was talking about grammar and reading and listening, she talked a lot about using kind of poems and stories in the classroom, and I was like, yes, I love using poems and stories in the classroom and rhythm and stuff like that. That's something I'm very enthusiastic about, which I try and do a lot in my classrooms. One of the things I've been trying to do in my classroom is I have this poetry project where I try and find poems that are accessible to ESL students. Because of the pressures of finding a new poem every lesson, some of the poems I've used in my archives are not great for ESL. So if you go to my ESL Poems Listening Archive playlist, I know a lot of those poems are not great. I got desperate some weeks. But she has two great poems in here. Cats by Eleanor Farjeon and Mice by Rose Fyleman. Both of these are just perfect poems for the ESL classroom, which were in the appendix, and I thought, I love these poems, I am so stealing them, and then I did steal them. I've already made listening videos for these poems, but yeah, really great poems here. Really illustrative of kind of something with nice, simple language, kind of nice, simple rhythm, like cats sleep anywhere, any table, any chair, top of piano, window ledge, in the middle, on the edge. Like, what great rhythm in that poem. The same with mice. I think mice are rather nice. Their tails are long, their faces small, they haven't any chins at all. Yeah, so those, if nothing else, that was a big plus from this book to get these poems out. Okay, I've probably blabbered on long enough here. I'll just stop it here. In conclusion, some things I agreed with, some things I disagreed with. A very readable book, though. Well worth reading. You'll get something out of it.